This evening, we walk beside a pilgrim whose worn journal carries more than prayers. In trembling ink, he describes a light that followed him through the hills, silent, unyielding, alive. He did not know what he saw, only that he was seen. We begin without fanfare. Not at dawn, but deep in the hush of evening. Rome sleeps. The halls settle. And yet, something feels awake, an old curiosity, kept warm for centuries. This is not a hunt for scandal. It is a calm walk through rooms where faith met the stars, and sometimes, perhaps, met something more. The church has watched the sky a long time. Monks tracked comets. Jesuits mapped constellations. Today, the Vatican even runs a modern telescope in Arizona. That alone tells a story. Belief and science can sit at the same table. Still, rumors cling to old stone. Whispers say certain letters were locked away, that sketches were mislabeled, that a few witnesses were heard only in private. Are these claims fair? We move slowly. We breathe. We check. And we listen. This audiobook is a sleep voyage. The pace is gentle. The language is simple. Each chapter holds one thread: an archive tale, a sky record, a symbol in art, a note from a traveler, a line in a sermon, an observatory log. No racing, no shouting. We will not push you to believe. We will invite you to wonder. You will hear of secret rooms that are not so secret, and of secrets that were simply technical. You will hear of real telescopes, real scholars, and real gaps in the record where imagination pours in. You will meet careful priests who loved astronomy and skeptics who loved clarity. You will feel the old tension between mystery and proof, and you may sense a softer truth, that the human heart has always looked up and asked, "Who else is out there?" Let your body grow heavy. Let your eyes sink. We will walk the narrow line between the sacred and the strange, and we will do it kindly. If answers appear, they will come like stars, quiet, distant, but bright enough to see. The stone walls breathe with age. You place your hand against them and feel the cool surface, smooth in places where countless palms have traced the same path over centuries. A hush lives here. Not silence exactly, but a deep stillness that feels alive. You follow the sound of your own steps down the narrow corridor, the echo soft and patient. Ahead, a heavy wooden door waits. Its frame is thick, iron-bound, and worn by time. Dust drifts in the dim light, catching the glow of a lantern on the far wall. You do not rush. The rhythm of your breath guides you forward. The Vatican's halls at night feel different, as if each shadow is a page, each corner a pause between sentences. To step here is to enter a book that never ends. You are not the first. Monks, priests, scholars, and seekers have walked this same corridor. They carried questions, burdens, and hopes. Tonight you carry something smaller, lighter, but just as urgent: curiosity. The key rests in your hand, old and cold. When you turn it, the metal clicks softly, not with drama, but with permission. The door opens. The scent of old parchment and wood rises to meet you, a fragrance both earthly and sacred. Inside, rows of shelves line the room, filled with boxes, volumes, and records stacked neatly as if waiting for a reader who might never come. Some boxes are marked with years, some with Latin phrases. Each box is a story. Each story is a secret that is not forbidden, only hidden by time and patience. You step inside, and the door eases shut behind you. The sound is gentle, not ominous. This is no dungeon. It is a library dressed in shadow. You trace your hand across a box labeled 1712. The numbers seem simple, but what lies within? Letters of a bishop? A diary of a missionary who traveled under distant skies? Perhaps a report of a comet, recorded with both awe and caution. The room is cool, but not cold. The air feels alive, filled with the faint hum of history. You kneel to look at a lower shelf and notice small slips of paper tucked between boxes. Margins of margins. Forgotten notes. The handwriting is precise, flowing, almost artistic. Words whisper of lights, of movements across the firmament. The phrasing is cautious, careful, as though the writer knew more than he dared to say. You pause to imagine the moment. A figure in candlelight, pen scratching, eyes glancing upward through a small window. Did he wonder if what he saw was divine? Did he wonder if it was natural? Or did he hesitate, caught between wonder and fear, between the urge to report and the duty to protect? The shelves seem endless. Some volumes bear golden seals, others are plain, unadorned, their power resting in their obscurity. You realize this is the paradox of secrets. They are not always locked away. Sometimes they are simply left waiting, untouched, their presence unspoken but undeniable. You move deeper into the room. Shadows dance along the high ceiling. A small lamp burns on a table in the corner, left perhaps by a caretaker. The flame flickers, bending light across an open book. The Latin words blur as your eyes grow heavy. The sentences speak, not of aliens, not directly, but of stars and signs, of wonders whose intent we cannot name. The phrasing feels careful, crafted to record without claiming, to note without forcing interpretation. This is the tone that lives here. Restraint. Each writer, each witness, each archivist leaves space for doubt. The archives are not built of answers, but of questions, preserved like pressed flowers between pages. You sense that to walk here is not to find revelation, but to learn the rhythm of curiosity itself. You sit at the table, the lamp warm beside you, and close your eyes. Behind your eyelids, you see the night sky. You see stars shifting, comets trailing, and lights that move against the expected flow. You do not decide what they mean. You do not label them. You simply breathe, letting the questions settle. What did they see? What did they fear? What did they hope you might someday understand? The door in the dark has opened, not only into a room but into a state of mind. You are no longer searching for a single secret. You are learning how to listen. And as you drift deeper into the hush, the shelves seem to breathe with you, their quiet patience welcoming you into the long night of wonder. The phrase secret archive carries weight. People imagine forbidden vaults, chained tomes, guards with stern faces. But the truth is softer, quieter. The word secret in Latin means set apart, not hidden away forever. These rooms are private, yes, but not forbidden. They are meant to be cared for, handled with caution, opened with intention. You stand now in one of these halls. It is not dark, not menacing. Sunlight filters through high windows, turning dust motes into drifting stars. Wooden tables line the space, each set for study. Boxes rest neatly, labeled with careful script. Archivists move calmly, their voices low, their gestures respectful. It feels less like a fortress and more like a monastery of paper. You approach a box and ask gently. The archivist nods. With white gloves, the lid is lifted, and the scent of time rises. Inside, folders of parchment lie waiting. They are not organized by drama, but by date, by duty, by patience. This is how memory is kept, one letter at a time. A missionary's report sits near the top. His words describe the sky above South America in the 1600s. He writes of strange fire, of motion across the heavens that was not of the known order. His tone is factual, steady, without flourish. He does not claim angels. He does not claim visitors. He simply records what he saw, because recording is what he was trained to do. Beside his report lies another, a copy of a bishop's sermon. He urges calm in his congregation after a comet appeared. He reminds them that fear feeds rumor, but truth requires patience. His words echo across centuries. Do not rush to conclusions. The secret, then, is not in the content, but in the patience required to see it. These archives do not scream revelations. They whisper, and only those willing to listen slowly can hear. You run your hand along the spine of a bound ledger. Its pages are filled with celestial observations, positions, times, sketches of orbits. They look more like science than conspiracy. And yet, between the lines, something stirs. A note about a light returning against expectation. A sketch where the curve of a comet looks almost too precise. These are not declarations. They are fragments, open to interpretation. The room feels calm. The archivists work steadily, undistracted by speculation. For them, each page is not a mystery but a responsibility. The secrets are only secret because few choose to look, fewer still choose to read slowly, and fewer again choose to ask what lingers between the lines. You close the ledger and sit back. Around you, the air is filled with the hum of quiet labor. This is what secrecy feels like here. Not danger, but preservation. Not locked doors, but careful handling. The secret is that truth does not reveal itself quickly. It asks for stillness, patience, and humility. And so you breathe deeply, allowing the slow rhythm of the archive to settle into you. Each breath feels like a page turned, each heartbeat like a line of text. You realize that to enter this place is to let go of hurry. Answers will not leap forward. They will wait for you, calm and still, until you are ready to notice them. The secrets are not hidden. They are simply quiet. And as you rest in that quiet, the idea of secrecy itself begins to soften. Perhaps the greatest secret is learning how to look without demanding. Every archive has its guardians. Here, they are called keepers, not guards, not owners, but stewards of memory. Their work is simple to describe and immense to perform: protect, preserve, provide when asked. The keeper's key is not only metal, it is trust. You walk beside one now, a man with calm eyes and a steady pace. His robes brush the floor softly as he moves. He carries a ring of keys, each old, each specific, but you notice he uses them rarely. Most doors are not locked. They are merely closed, requiring respect to open. He speaks quietly as you walk. His voice is gentle, a rhythm like prayer. He tells you that knowledge must be handled like flame, enough to light, but never enough to burn. That is why some pages rest in boxes and not in open shelves. Not to hide, but to protect from misuse. He pauses before a door and selects a key. The sound of metal in lock is soft, like a sigh. The door opens onto a smaller room. Inside are fewer boxes, but the air feels heavier, as though the stories here have waited longer. He sets a lamp on the table and gestures for you to sit. From the shelf, he draws a slim volume. The cover is leather, cracked by age, but the binding holds strong. He opens to a page where neat handwriting describes a night sky, stars in movement, not like the others, and in lines not known to us. The keeper does not explain. He lets the words rest. You read slowly. The writer recorded with care, without drama, as though aware of both the weight and the fragility of what he saw. You look up, and the keeper nods. He has no need to tell you what to believe. His key has opened the door. Nothing more. You realize that the role of the keeper is not to answer, but to invite. His keys unlock rooms, but what you find is yours to carry. He cannot decide what the lights meant. He cannot force you to see them as divine or as distant travelers. His task is only to make sure the record remains for you to encounter. The keeper returns the book gently to the shelf. He turns the lamp down, leaving the room in twilight. As you stand, he locks the door again, not out of secrecy but out of care. The key clicks softly, a reminder that not all who enter are ready to listen. Walking back through the corridor, you feel lighter, though the air is thick with history. The keeper's pace is steady, unhurried. You notice his silence is not empty, it is full. He carries more stories than he could ever tell, and yet he does not hoard them. He waits for seekers who arrive with patience. The keeper's key is not just metal. It is trust, restraint, and reverence. It is the choice to protect the thin line between knowledge and misuse. And as you leave his side, you understand that the true key he carries is not in his hand but in his heart. The quiet wisdom of knowing when to open and when to let a mystery rest. The parchment lies open under dim light. Its surface glows faintly, edges curled with age, fibers rough beneath your fingertips. Words fill the page in steady script, lines upon lines, but your eyes drift not to the body of the text, but to the sides. There, in narrow bands of space, another voice whispers, margins, the quiet corners of a page where thoughts escape structure. Here, the scribe allows himself freedom. Questions, reminders, faint remarks in red ink. The red is not for decoration, it marks emphasis, a call to return, a signal of uncertainty. You lean closer, and the color itself seems to vibrate under the lamplight. The main text speaks of weather, of celestial movements, of duties carried out by the church in a far-off province. Routine, calm, expected. But in the margin, the red letters shift the tone. Strange illumination, the hand records. No cause in clouds, no cause in flame. The script is quick, almost rushed. It does not declare, it notes. That is all. And yet, those few words carry more force than pages of calm description. You imagine the moment. A priest, pen poised, recording his assigned duties. Outside, perhaps the night sky opens with something unexplainable. A flash, a movement, a light that behaves differently than stars. He does not dare fill the main body of his report with such things. But he cannot ignore it either, so he bends to the side, to the margin, and lets truth slip in quietly. The red ink stains the parchment with urgency, but its placement off to the side shows caution. It is as if the writer wanted to preserve memory but not spark alarm. Centuries later, you sit where he sat, tracing his choice, feeling the tug between silence and confession. You turn to another volume. Again, the margins speak more than the text. A long account of a bishop's travels covers the page. He records audiences, disputes, weather, but in the margin appears a sketch, a small circle with trailing lines, not labeled, not explained, just there, quietly drawn. A comet, a fireball, or perhaps something harder to name. The bishop's scribe leaves it without comment, the ink drying in the blank white around the text. You sit back, realizing how much of history lives not in the official lines but in the corners. Margins hold human hesitation, doubt, and wonder. They are where the extraordinary hides so it cannot be erased. A censor might cut bold claims, but a faint red note? A sketch in the side? Those remain, too small to erase, too subtle to notice, until someone years later learns to look sideways. Your fingers brush another book. Its margins swarm with additions, some in black ink, others in faded brown. Layers of commentary over decades, each hand smaller than the last. One note describes lights that cross in patterns unlike the firmament. Another counters, perhaps lanterns adrift. Centuries of debate recorded in inches of space. The margins are alive with dialogue. The room grows stiller. You close your eyes and see those figures hunched in candlelight, pens scratching sideways, hearts racing with what they feared to say too loudly. In margins they found safety, and in margins you now find them. The lesson whispers. Truth does not always declare itself. Sometimes it waits in the smallest spaces, carried in red ink, fragile and enduring. And as you breathe slowly, letting the hush of the archive deepen, you realize you too are standing in a margin between faith and mystery, between silence and revelation. The flame flickers. Its light bends against the wall, stretching, shrinking, shifting with the faintest breath of air. In the 1500s, this was the light by which men read, wrote, and judged. And often, it was by this light they tried to explain the unexplained. You sit at a wooden desk. A single candle burns before you. Around it, shadows grow long. Each movement of the flame transforms the shapes in the room. A book's spine glimmers, then disappears. A corner darkens, then flares bright. Nothing remains steady. This is how the human eye once lived by uncertain glow. Now imagine a night sky seen after hours of such flicker. Eyes strained, adjusted to soft flame, lifted suddenly to stars. A movement appears. Was it a shooting star, or a trick of tired vision? Was it a passing cloud catching hidden moonlight? Or something that moved with purpose? The candle test, as archivists later call it, is not an official doctrine. It is a way of remembering context. Many of the oldest reports of lights in the sky came from men who lived in a world lit only by flame. Their eyes were trained to catch movement, but their perception blurred by shadow and glow. A strange light above might feel more alive, more foreign, than it would under modern clarity. You lean closer to the candle. The flame bends. On the wall, a shadow seems to move of its own will. For a moment, it resembles a figure, a wing, a craft. Your heart stirs. Then the flame steadies, and the illusion fades. How many testimonies began just like this, an image alive for a heartbeat, convincing, unforgettable, but gone before reason could catch it. And yet, not all can be dismissed. Some accounts describe lights that persisted, moved against the stars, turned where comets never turn. The candle test explains some, but not all. It reminds us to be cautious, not dismissive, to weigh wonder with reason, doubt with respect. You turn to a record from the 1700s. It describes fire in the heavens, lasting long enough for prayers to be spoken aloud. Entire congregations stood outside, watching together. Too many eyes to be tricked by one candle's flicker. Too many voices to misremember. The scribe notes their awe, their fear, and finally their calm acceptance. It moved with intent, but left us without harm. The candle test softens your judgment but does not erase the mystery. It reminds you that perception is fragile, but it also teaches that even fragile eyes can see true wonders. The flame before you flickers again, and once more a shape leaps across the wall. You smile gently, knowing how thin the line is between illusion and revelation. In the end, the candle teaches patience. Not every shadow is a visitor, not every light is a sign. But some remain after the flame is gone, steady in the sky, waiting to be remembered. And as your candle burns lower, the room grows darker, and your curiosity steadies like a star that refuses to fade. The paper lies folded, edges soft with time. Its ink is faded but legible. The handwriting is careful, deliberate. The work of someone who knew his words might be weighed heavily. You unfold it slowly, as if unsealing a confidence that was never delivered. The letter begins with a formal address, a bishop perhaps, or a cardinal. The salutation is respectful, yet the body of the text feels personal, almost hesitant. The writer describes a night beneath the open sky, a night when luminous forms crossed above. He writes that they moved unlike stars, unlike known meteors, with motion suggesting design. Thanks for watching. You pause. The words strike you with their caution. He does not say craft. He does not say beings. He says only motion suggesting design. His choice of language balances wonder with restraint. You sense his fear, not of the lights, but of how his words might be judged. Midway through the letter, the tone shifts. He wonders aloud whether to share the account. He worries it might stir fear among the faithful, or mockery among scholars. He admits he does not fully understand what he saw. His hand trembles across the page. I record this not for public proclamation, but for memory, should others in future see the same. But the letter was never sent. You hold it centuries later, still folded, never sealed with wax. Perhaps he decided at the last moment to keep it private. Perhaps he tucked it into a drawer, meaning to revisit, and it was forgotten until found among his effects after death. The unsent letter feels heavier than any official report. In its hesitation lies honesty. The writer was not trying to convince, not trying to build doctrine, not trying to prove. He was confessing to paper what he dared not confess aloud. That makes the account both fragile and powerful. You sit with the letter in your hands, imagining his struggle. He saw something that challenged his categories. He felt compelled to write, but not compelled to share. He chose silence over risk, and in that silence, he preserved a raw truth. That even within faith, even within the walls of the church, there was room for questions too delicate for the pulpit. The lamp beside you flickers. The letter rests on the table, its folds casting soft shadows. You realize how many letters like this may have been written, unsent, tucked away. For every record preserved, how many were lost to fire, to doubt, to fear of judgment? The silence of those unwritten words may be louder than any archive. You fold the paper again, carefully, as if returning it to its long pause. You breathe deeply, and in that breath feel the writer's hesitation merging with your own. You too stand at a threshold between wonder and caution. You too carry questions that may never find voice. The letter never sent becomes your mirror. It teaches that mystery does not always shout in records. Sometimes it whispers in what was withheld, in the courage to wonder but the choice to remain silent. And as you close your eyes, you imagine the night he saw, the sky alive with motion that defied explanation. You imagine his pen, scratching words he would never deliver. And you let yourself drift into that same quiet space where wonder is real, but answers are left unwritten. The catalog lies open before you. It is not a single book, but a collection of registers, thick, heavy, bound in leather. Each page is divided by columns: date, location, reference, brief note. At first glance, it seems plain, bureaucratic. But the longer you look, the stranger it becomes. So many entries carry names, sermons, decrees, inventories, yet scattered among them are records without labels. They are marked only with a symbol, sometimes a star, sometimes a blank dash. The column where the title should appear is empty, or replaced with a word in Latin, incertus, uncertain. You trace one such line with your finger. The year is clear, the location is clear. But in the description, there is only the phrase de motibus lucis, about the movements of light. Nothing else. No explanation. No elaboration. Just light. It is as if the catalog itself did not know what to call it. Another entry catches your eye. The year 1743. The note reads simply, res inexplicata, an inexplicable thing. No detail beyond that. The archivist who wrote it clearly wanted to record the event, but refused to define it. The index becomes less a list of knowledge and more a record of uncertainty. You imagine the people behind these words. A scribe, confronted with a report he could not name, deciding not to erase it but to leave it suspended in this space of half-existence. By writing unnamed, he preserved the event without forcing it into a category. He allowed mystery to survive. The room grows quieter as you study more entries. Some are grouped, as if several unnamed events occurred in the same year. Others stand alone, isolated in centuries of calm. Together they form a secret rhythm, a pulse beneath the official record. You close your eyes and picture those who once flipped through these indexes. A young scholar, perhaps, running his finger down the column, pausing at the gaps. Did he feel the same curiosity you do now? Did he wonder what lay in the missing words? Or did he shrug and turn the page? Unwilling to chase a ghost, the index of the unnamed hums with possibility. Each blank space is an invitation. Each symbol, each dash, each absence points not to ignorance, but to preservation. They chose not to fill the page with false certainty. They chose to leave it open. You breathe in the scent of the paper, old and dry, and let the silence of the unnamed settle around you. The catalog does not shout answers. It whispers questions. And in those whispers you hear the truth, that the Vatican did not erase everything. Some mysteries they let remain, quietly, in the margins of their own order. You sit back, letting your thoughts drift. The pages blur into a sea of dates and empty spaces. The entries without names feel alive, like faint stars against a dark sky. They are small, almost invisible, but they endure. And in their endurance, they speak. The index of the unnamed teaches you something simple, yet profound. Not everything must be explained. Not everything must be labeled. To leave a thing unnamed is not to deny it. It is to honor its strangeness. And as your breath slows, you realize you too can let some questions remain without answer, carried not in definitions but in wonder. The cloister is quiet at night. Arches frame the courtyard, shadows stretching long across the stone. A monk in a brown habit steps softly, his sandals brushing against gravel. Above him, the sky is wide and clear. Stars shine like silver pins pressed into dark velvet. He tilts his head back and waits. Then it comes a streak of light, bright and sudden, carving across the heavens. A meteor. He exhales, not with fear, but with awe. He raises his hand, tracing its brief path. In his other hand, he holds a small notebook, bound in rough leather. He kneels, opens it, and writes quickly. On this night, a light crossed the northern sky. Swift, without sound, it faded as if swallowed. You stand beside him in imagination, feeling the cool air, hearing the rustle of leaves. He is not alone. Across centuries, countless monks have done the same, watching, recording, marveling at the heavens above. Their lives were measured by bells, by prayer, by silence. And yet, in those hours between psalms, their eyes often wandered upward. The monastery was both sanctuary and observatory. The rhythms of prayer demanded attention to time, and time required attention to the sky. Phases of the moon, the rising of stars, the shifting of constellations. These were not abstractions. They marked when to sow, when to harvest, when to gather, when to mourn. The monks wrote it all down. You turn the page in his notebook. More entries appear. Comets with long tails, eclipses where day turned to night, unusual lights that lingered too long to be dismissed. He records them with care, never exaggerating. Each note is brief, precise, stripped of fear. And yet, you sense the awe in his words. Imagine him returning to his cell after such a sight. The stone walls lit faintly by candle. The scratch of pen on parchment steady and sure. He writes not for fame, not for argument, but for memory. For the simple act of saying, "This happened. I saw it." You breathe with him. You feel the stillness of the cloister, the hush of night. You see the sky alive with meteors, some brief, some bright enough to light the courtyard. You sense his calm joy, his quiet certainty that creation itself is a book, and every flash of light is a word in its margins. And you wonder, how many of those meteors were truly stones burning in the atmosphere? And how many were something stranger, something not yet named? The monk did not speculate. He left the record as it was, trusting that someday, perhaps, others would read and wonder. You let your mind drift upward, following those trails of light across the centuries. They do not fade. They linger, woven into memory, into ink, into stone walls that still stand. The monks under meteors did not solve mysteries. They preserved them, and in that preservation, they gave you this gift, a window into their wonder. As your eyes grow heavy, you picture the sky above a medieval cloister. Meteors rain down silently, each one a brief miracle. A monk bends to record it, and across time, you bend too, joining him in his quiet awe. A globe rests on a wooden stand. Its surface is not of earth, but of sky. Constellations stretch across it, drawn in careful lines, each star marked with precision. A Jesuit scholar leans over it, candlelight warming his face. His quill scratches steadily, adding coordinates, measuring angles. He is building a map not of kingdoms, but of heavens. The Jesuits were known for this work. They carried mathematics, astronomy, and cartography into lands far from Rome. Their maps guided not only sailors and merchants, but also seekers of the divine. To chart the sky was to chart creation itself, and in their eyes, creation was a sacred text. You lean closer to the globe. The stars are not scattered randomly. They are placed with accuracy, aligned with the records of nights long past. Each one a point of data, each line a path of meaning. But here and there, you notice something unusual, marks that do not fit constellations. Small notes in the margins. Light seen, path uncertain, object moved. They working with the proofs of the proof staying. The Jesuit maps are both science and story. They capture the heavens as they were known, but they also leave space for what was not understood. A comet traced in red, a wandering star noted but unnamed. Sometimes a cluster of dots without explanation, preserved because the observer insisted it was real. You imagine the scholar at work. He has traveled far, perhaps to China, perhaps to the Americas. He stands under foreign skies, eyes lifted, measuring, recording. He sees lights where no chart has placed them. He adds them anyway, knowing that future generations may understand better. His quill pauses. He writes a phrase in Latin, modus mirabilis, a marvelous movement. He does not claim it as miracle or machine. He simply records. His map becomes both a tool and a confession. You step back and see the room around him. Shelves filled with instruments, astrolabes, compasses, telescopes, each polished, each used with devotion. For the Jesuits, science was not an enemy of faith. It was a partner. To measure the heavens was to honor their maker. But in honoring, they sometimes stumbled upon mysteries that stretched beyond doctrine. The star maps live on. You imagine them unrolled on tables centuries later, scholars pointing at the odd marks, asking, What was seen that night? Was it a comet lost to memory? Was it a mistake? Or was it something no one could name? The maps do not answer. They show. They preserve. They wait. As you sit with the globe, your breath slows. The stars blur into a soft glow. You feel yourself lifted, as if drifting among them. You see the careful lines of constellations, and beyond them, faint marks of the unexplained. They are not erased. They remain. The Jesuit star maps teach patience. They remind you that even the most precise science leaves room for mystery, that to chart the heavens is not to master them, but to walk beside them. And as your eyes grow heavy, you realize you too are mapping your own sky recording, preserving, wondering. Each breath a star, each heartbeat a coordinate, each silence a space for the unnamed. The night is cold and clear. A village gathers in the square, necks craned upward, eyes wide. Above them, stretching across the heavens, a glowing tail burns white against the dark. It is a comet, vast and silent, carving its path across the dome of stars. For most, it is fear. For some, awe. For a few, opportunity. You stand among them in imagination, listening to their whispers. A woman clutches her child, murmuring prayers. A man crosses himself again and again, as if to shield himself from what he cannot name. A boy stares without fear, eyes shining, wondering if the light is alive. The comet lingers, unhurried, visible night after night, becoming a constant presence above roofs and fields. In the monastery nearby, a priest dips his pen into ink. His hand shakes slightly as he writes. A star with a tail, bright and unyielding, crosses the sky. The people fear a sign of judgment. I write to remind myself, all creation belongs to God. His words are steady, but you can feel the weight in them. For centuries, comets carried connotations of doom, warnings from heaven, reminders of mortality. To reassure was as necessary as to record. You picture him stepping into the pulpit on Sunday, the comet still blazing above. He looks at his congregation, their eyes full of questions. He speaks slowly, carefully, choosing words like stones placed across a river. This light is part of creation. It is not a curse, but a wonder. Fear not, but pray. His voice steadies the crowd, though not all are convinced. Some still look upward with trembling hearts. Meanwhile, in private, he wrestles with conscience. What if it is a sign? What if heaven itself speaks through these fiery tales? To deny that possibility feels dangerous. To affirm it feels reckless. And so he writes carefully, balancing awe with restraint, leaving behind records that carry both science and mystery. You read one such record centuries later. The ink is faded, the parchment rough, but the words still hum with tension. The comet lingered. It says, longer than any before. It changed the prayers of the people. It shaped the silence of the night. I do not know its purpose. The honesty moves you. He did not claim certainty. He did not hide doubt. He preserved it, humbly, allowing future readers to feel what he felt. His conscience guided him, not to explain away the sky, but to stand in wonder with those who looked up in fear. As you close the record, you realize how many comets have come and gone. Some explained, some forgotten, some still whispered about. Each one left its mark not only in the sky but in the hearts of those who saw it. Comets remind us of our smallness, our fragility, but also of our ability to marvel. Your breath slows. You picture that fiery tail arching across the heavens, endless and silent. You imagine the villagers, the priests, the scribes, all staring upward together, hearts caught between terror and reverence, and you let yourself join them. The comet does not demand belief. It demands only awe. And awe, you realize, is its own form of prayer. The morning begins bright. Birds sing, fields shimmer, villagers walk to market beneath a golden Sunday. Then, without warning, light begins to fade. Shadows lengthen unnaturally. The air cools. The sky dims, not with cloud, but with something stranger. The moon has begun its silent passage, and the day bends toward night. You stand in the square, surrounded by gasps. People freeze, baskets clutch to their chests. Dogs bark, confused. Children cry out, tugging at their mother's skirts. Slowly, the sun becomes a thin crescent, then a ring of fire. Darkness swallows the world at noon. Stars appear, birds go silent. Time itself feels broken. In the church, the bell tolls. The priest ascends the pulpit, his own heart racing. He knows the cause. He has read of such events, learned from old texts how the moon's shadow falls across the earth. But his flock does not know. To them, this is a wound in the sky, a sign of anger, a tear in the fabric of creation. He raises his voice, calm, firm, steady. Do not fear. This is the dance of the heavens. The moon passes before the sun, but both remain, both endure. Darkness will lift. Light will return. His words echo in the dim church, his voice a rope for the fearful to hold. Outside, the crowd clings to his reassurance, though their eyes remain fixed upward, hearts pounding. You imagine the silence that falls as the eclipse deepens. The landscape shifts into eerie twilight. Colors fade. Even breath feels different. The priest himself, though steady in his teaching, cannot suppress awe. He feels it too, that strangeness, that reminder of how fragile light can be. Later, in his journal, he records the moment. The sun was eaten. The people trembled. I spoke of order, of cycles, of the Lord's design. Yet in my heart I too was shaken. The words admit what the pulpit could not, that knowledge does not erase wonder. To understand an eclipse is one thing. To stand beneath it is another. You sit with his record in the archive, the page trembling in your hands as though carrying the memory of that trembling day. You imagine what it was like to see stars at noon, to feel the sun vanish, to hear silence fall upon an entire village. You do not need belief to feel the awe. You only need imagination. As your breathing slows, you picture the ring of fire glowing above, the crowd frozen below, the priest standing tall but inwardly trembling. You feel both their fear and his courage. And you realize eclipses did more than darken skies. They tested faith, challenged certainty, and left behind memories so strong they demanded to be written down. The eclipse is not a sign of anger, not a curse. It is the shadow of the moon, the simplest of cosmic alignments. And yet, its impact on human hearts remains profound. For in those moments of sudden darkness, all are reminded of their dependence on light. And when the light returns, gratitude floods the soul like sunrise. The chapel glows with candlelight. A fresco stretches across the ceiling. Saints painted in flowing robes. Halos bright against a star-strewn sky. Around them, spheres of light orbit, circles within circles, echoing the ancient belief that the heavens move in ordered harmony. Faith and astronomy, painted as one, you tilt your head back, letting your gaze wander the curves of the ceiling. Each saint gestures upward, as though pointing not only to God but also to creation itself. Their halos seem like suns, their robes like clouds, their presence woven into the cosmos. To the painter, there was no divide. Heaven and sky, saint and star, sphere and prayer all belong to the same great design. You imagine the monks who prayed here. As they knelt, their eyes lifted not only to the altar but also to the painted heavens above. They carried rosaries in their hands and constellations in their thoughts. Their chants echoed through stone halls, timed not just by bells but by the rising of stars, the waxing of the moon. In another room, a scholar bends over parchment, compass in hand. He draws circles, perfect and concentric, representing the spheres of heaven as taught for centuries. He labels each: Moon, Mercury, Venus, Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. Beyond them, the sphere of the fixed stars. Beyond that, the divine. To him, this is not theory but devotion. To trace the heavens is to trace the architecture of God. And yet, in the margins of his diagram, he notes small corrections, stars that appear where no sphere accounts for them, movements slightly off the perfect circles. He does not erase them. He adds them, carefully, humbly, acknowledging that creation is more complex than his models allow. You breathe with him, sensing his patience. He is not afraid of mystery. To him, faith is not fragile. It can hold unanswered questions. The saints above his desk remind him of that figures who lived in wonder, who accepted mystery as part of devotion. He does not separate science from spirituality. He lets them walk together, side by side. Centuries later, you stand in the same space, the fresco still shining faintly overhead. You feel the same pull, the desire to believe in order, and the recognition of mystery within it. The saints in the spheres teach that faith and knowledge are not enemies. They are companions, each humbling the other, each widening the view. Your breath slows. You see the saints gazing upward, their halos glowing like suns. You see the spheres encircling them, vast and intricate, alive with both certainty and doubt. And you feel yourself lifted, drawn into that ancient rhythm where prayer meets astronomy, where wonder meets devotion. The saints and spheres do not demand answers. They invite you into harmony. They remind you that to look at the sky is not to leave faith, and to kneel in faith is not to ignore the sky. Both are doors into mystery. Both lead you deeper into awe. And as you close your eyes, the chapel fades, the fresco dissolves, and you drift into your own sphere, silent, infinite, and filled with light. The candle burns low on the desk, its wax pooling across a dish that has caught the same molten drips for years. Beyond the window, the monastery courtyard lies wrapped in silence. Bells have struck the last hour, and the brothers sleep in their cells. But one remains awake, bent over parchment, quill in hand. His eyes lift again and again toward the narrow window above him, where the night sky pours in like a black river filled with silver stones. The scholar's life is quiet, his days ordered by prayer and labor, but his nights belong to the heavens. He records what he sees with precision, not in bursts of inspiration, but in slow, methodical notes. Each star has its position, each constellation its arc, each light its behavior. His handwriting is small and steady, meant for endurance, not flourish. He writes as though he is building a bridge across time, one careful word at a time. You imagine him pausing to sip cool water, stretching his fingers stiff from writing. The silence is deep, but not empty. He hears the faint creak of wood, the rustle of wind against shutters, the distant murmur of water in the cloister fountain. Each sound becomes part of his vigil. He is not lonely. He is accompanied by the rhythm of the cosmos itself. He turns a page and sketches a small diagram. Tonight, he has noticed something different. A star that does not remain fixed. It drifts slowly, almost imperceptibly, against the pattern. He notes its position carefully, then again an hour later. The movement is real. He does not speculate. He does not declare discovery. He simply writes, Stella mota lente. A star moved slowly. His quill pauses. He leans back, eyes narrowing. What does it mean? Perhaps it is a planet, one of the wandering lights the ancients described. Perhaps it is something else, something unnamed. He does not need to answer. His role is to witness, not to decide. He writes it down, trusting that time will reveal what he cannot. Hours pass. The candle gutters. The sky shifts, stars sliding in their vast arcs. He yawns, rubs his eyes, but continues. His vigil is not a burden. It is a devotion. For him, the act of watching the heavens is prayer as much as the chanting of psalms. To trace the stars is to trace the hand of God across creation. At last, the candle dies. He sits in darkness, gazing at the sky through the narrow window. His eyes water from strain, but his heart feels full. He has preserved the night in ink. He has woven it into memory. And though he does not know if anyone will read his notes, he knows the act itself matters. To watch, to record, to honor, that is his task. You close your own eyes and feel the weight of his vigil. The long hours, the slow pen, the steady patience. You sense the humility in it, the willingness to serve mystery without demanding reward. And as you breathe deeply, you too become part of his night. Sitting quietly with the stars, writing nothing, asking nothing, simply present with the infinite. You turn the pages of an old volume, expecting the steady rhythm of reports, sermons, astronomical notes. But suddenly the pages shift. Where once words marched line by line, now there are gaps. Whole months are absent, a year, perhaps two. Blank parchment, untouched. Silence bound into the spine. It is startling. The absence feels louder than words. What happened here? Why did the pen stop? Was the scribe ill, taken suddenly from his post? Did the monastery suffer fire, war, or plague that forced hands to other tasks? Or did something occur that was too strange, too dangerous, to record it all? You trace the blank pages with your fingers. The texture is rougher, less worn, as if untouched by centuries of study. These are the hidden chambers of history, silences that guard their own secrets. Elsewhere, you find similar gaps. In one ledger, entries march steadily for decades, then vanish for 5 years before resuming again. The archivist who continues offers no explanation. He begins mid-sentence, as though nothing was lost. But you feel it. A hollow space in the flow of time. Why do records go silent? Sometimes, the reason is ordinary. The scribe died. The paper supply ran thin. The work was forgotten. But sometimes, silence feels deliberate. You find a note at the bottom of a page, scrawled hurriedly in the margin. Non-scriptum, not written. That phrase chills you. It is not that he could not write. It is that he chose not to. You imagine the nights when something strange unfolded in the sky. A light hovered too long, too steady to be a star. A shape moved with intention, leaving witnesses unsettled. The scribe sat with his pen ready, but hesitated. To record might mean scrutiny, suspicion, or misunderstanding. To remain silent was safer. The silence becomes its own record. It speaks through absence, through what is missing. You begin to see gaps differently, not as voids, but as footprints. Each blank page is a choice, a decision that tells you something, even without words. You lean back, closing the book gently. The silence echoes in you. You realize how often in your own life you have left things unwritten, unsaid. Memories too fragile, experiences too confusing, thoughts too heavy to set down. The blank spaces in your own story hum with meaning, just as these pages do. Silence, you realize, is not emptiness. It is presence without form. The records that go silent still speak. They remind you that not all truths are written. Some are preserved in the hush, waiting for those who can hear what absence says. You breathe slowly, allowing the quiet to expand within you. The room darkens. The book rests closed, and you drift into a silence of your own, filled not with fear, but with wonder. On a mountain in Arizona, the air is thin and clear. Pines whisper in the night, and the stars above blaze with uncommon brightness. A dome rises against the sky, its curved shell gleaming faintly in moonlight. Inside, a great telescope waits, silent and precise, a machine of mirrors and steel. The Vatican built this. You pause to consider why. For centuries, the Church studied the heavens with eyes and charts. Why build such an instrument now? So far from Rome, so high on a remote peak, you step inside the dome in your mind. The air smells of metal and dust, faintly tinged with oil. The floor hums with the weight of machinery. Before you, the telescope stands like a guardian of the sky, its long barrel pointed upward. Control panels blink softly, red lights glowing like tiny stars. The astronomers who work here are not monks in robes, but scientists in quiet jackets, carrying notebooks, adjusting lenses. Yet they share the same devotion as the scholars before them. For them, the telescope is not a denial of faith, but an extension of it. To study the stars is to study creation. To map galaxies is to honor the infinite. You watch as the dome roof slowly rolls open. The night rushes in. Stars spill across the aperture, flooding the mirror with their light. The telescope moves, precise and smooth, aligning with its target. You hear the faint whir of gears, the steady click of motors. Then stillness. The machine waits, gazing silently upward. Why a telescope? Because the eye is small, and the sky is vast. Because the human soul has always longed to see further, deeper. Because questions remain that prayer alone cannot answer. The Vatican built this to seek, not to prove, to ask, not to declare. You imagine an astronomer at the eyepiece, his breath fogging in the cold. He adjusts the focus, and suddenly a nebula appears, luminous and fragile, a cloud of stars being born. He gasps softly, moved not by doctrine or debate, but by sheer beauty. Later, he will write his report, dry and factual. But in his heart, he will remember the moment as prayer. The telescope does not seek aliens. It seeks truth, wherever it may be. And truth is not afraid of stars. You breathe deeply, imagining yourself on that mountain, the dome open, the telescope gazing into eternity. You feel the thin air, the hush of pines, the vast silence above. You realize why the Vatican built this. To remind itself, and the world, that faith does not end at the horizon. It reaches into the cosmos, as far as mirrors and minds can carry it. As your breath slows, you close your eyes. The telescope hums, the dome opens wider, and the stars pour in. You drift with them, infinite, silent, endless. The telescope is not only a machine, it is an invitation to see, to wonder, to believe that mystery is not something to fear, but something to welcome. The sun lowers behind the ridges of Arizona, its light melting into shades of amber and violet. The mountain stands tall, its slopes wrapped in whispering pines, its summit crowned by a white dome that gleams faintly in the dying glow. The desert stretches far below, silent, vast, ancient. Up here, the air thins, cooler, sharper, filled with the scent of resin and stone. You step onto the gravel road that winds toward the observatory. The world feels hushed, as if the mountain itself is holding its breath. Shadows lengthen across the slopes. The last birds call briefly before quieting. From the west, the first stars blink awake, fragile points of silver against a deepening blue. The telescope dome rests ahead, massive yet graceful, its curves catching the last fire of the sunset. For a moment, it looks like an eye, closed but ready to open. You pause, gazing at it, and feel a subtle weight. This is not just a machine, but a presence, a sentinel on a sacred height. The Jesuits who come here do so not out of conquest, but curiosity. They climb the mountain, carrying notebooks and instruments, their breath thin in the high air. They unlock the door with quiet hands, and the heavy dome groans faintly as it swings open. Inside, the steel skeleton of the telescope looms, patient and still, like a giant waiting for the night. You follow them in imagination, stepping across the cold floor. The faint scent of oil lingers, mixed with the sharpness of alpine air. Consoles glow softly, red and green lights pulsing in rhythm. The astronomers move calmly, preparing, adjusting, speaking in low tones. Their gestures are steady, practiced. They do not rush. They respect both machine and mountain. Outside, darkness deepens. Coyotes call from the slopes. The stars emerge in their countless thousands, so many that the sky seems alive. The Milky Way arches overhead, a river of light spilling from horizon to horizon. You tilt your head back, and for a moment you forget to breathe. This is what drew them here. The clarity, the vastness, the overwhelming purity of night. The dome stirs. Motors hum. Slowly, the roof slides open, revealing the sky to the telescope's gaze. The mountain wind drifts inside, cool and steady. The great barrel lifts, turning with mechanical grace, aligning itself with its first target. The astronomers adjust their controls, eyes fixed on screens, ears attuned to the faint clicks and whirs of machinery. Why here? Because this mountain, remote and pure, offers one of the clearest windows into the cosmos. Because the Vatican sought not only books and manuscripts, but also stars themselves, fresh and alive. To stand on this peak is to touch the infinite with sharper clarity than most will ever know. You imagine them watching their first object of the night. Perhaps a galaxy, its spiral arms glowing faintly on the screen. Perhaps a distant nebula, clouded and bright, birthing stars in silence. They speak in technical terms, but beneath the words you sense awe. For them, science and faith are not rivals but partners. To see further is to believe more deeply. To measure light is to honor its source. You step back outside, letting the dome hum behind you. The mountain lies in darkness now, the desert stretching endlessly below. The stars are so bright you feel as if you could reach out and gather them. You breathe the cold air and realize why this place matters. Not just for its clarity, but for its quiet. Here, the the noise of the world fades. Here, only sky and silence remain. You close your eyes and feel yourself dissolve into that silence. The mountain holds you gently. The sky surrounds you. The telescope gazes outward with patient wonder. Mount Graham at dusk becomes not only a place but a threshold, a door where earth and heaven meet. The telescope waits in darkness, its mirrors aligned, its dome open wide. The air is cold, the night still. Inside the control room, the astronomers sit quietly, their faces lit by the glow of monitors. They have prepared for this moment for months, perhaps years. Now the time has come. The telescope's first light. You picture the silence before it begins. The whir of motors fades. The hum of electronics steadies. The dome stands open, framing the infinite sky. Outside, stars blaze across the heavens, ancient and uncountable. The astronomers hold their breath, waiting. Then the command is given. The great barrel shifts, aligning with its chosen target. A galaxy, faint but vast, a swirl of light millions of years away. The photons that left it before Rome was founded now strike the mirror, bouncing into lenses, traveling through wires, appearing as faint lines on the screen. The image forms. At first, a blur, then sharper, clearer, until the spiral arms unfold in silver and shadow. Gas clouds shimmer faintly. Clusters of stars glow like jewels scattered in darkness. The astronomers lean closer, their eyes wide, their voices hushed. They are not cheering, they are whispering. For what they see is not triumph, but gift. First light is more than data. It is baptism. It is the moment a machine becomes an eye, a soul in steel that opens to the cosmos. The Vatican astronomers know this. They mark it not only with notes and calibrations, but with reverence. Some cross themselves quietly. Others close their eyes, breathing deeply, letting the sight settle into their hearts. You imagine the room, filled with the glow of screens, the faint hum of cooling fans, the rustle of paper as notes are taken. Outside, the mountain sleeps in darkness, the stars above indifferent and eternal. Yet here, in this dome, something new has begun. A conversation between humanity and heaven, carried through glass and mirror. Later, they will publish the data. They will present the clarity of the telescope, the precision of its optics. They will discuss measurements, spectra, technical details. But in this first moment, none of that matters. What matters is the awe. What matters is that for the first time, the telescope has opened its eye and seen. You close your own eyes, imagining what it would feel like to witness first light, the sudden sharpness of the stars, the hum of machinery alive with purpose, the quiet intake of breath as the universe reveals itself more clearly than ever before. You feel your chest expand, your body lighten, your heart steady. First light is not just for astronomers. It is for anyone who has ever looked upward and wondered. It is the moment curiosity becomes vision, the moment mystery takes form, and as you breathe deeply, you realize that first light is not only about telescopes, it is about you, about every moment you open yourself to something greater, every moment you choose to see clearly. The telescope rests, its mirrors alive with starlight. The astronomers continue their work, steady and focused. But in the silence between their words, you hear the deeper truth. First light is not just science. It is prayer in the language of photons, devotion written across galaxies. The archive of the observatory is not filled with myths or prophecies. It is filled with logs, binders of paper, lines of text, tables of numbers, dates, times, coordinates, conditions, results. The handwriting may change, the ink may fade, but the pattern remains steady. Observation recorded with care, night after night. You sit at a desk in the observatory library, a logbook open before you. The paper smells faintly of dust and graphite. The handwriting is precise, neat, stripped of flourish. It reads, March 12, 2:15, clear skies. Target, May 7, seeing fair. Noted jets visible faintly. Another entry, June 7, 23:40, thin cirrus. Target, Kepler field. Photometry successful. The rhythm is calm, methodical. At first, it seems dry. No poetry, no speculation, no wonder. Just facts. But as you read, you feel something shift. The facts themselves begin to hum with meaning. Each number is a star, each line a glimpse of eternity. The logs are not lore, but they carry weight. They are the bones of discovery, the skeleton upon which wonder rests. You imagine the astronomer writing late at night, the dome open, the telescope humming. He notes the seeing conditions, the target coordinates, the exposure time. He does not embellish, he does not drift into imagination. But behind the restraint lies awe, for he knows what he is recording. He knows that each entry is a moment of contact with the infinite. Some pages hold corrections, a line crossed out, replaced with clearer numbers, a note in the margin, instrument error. Another, possible transient uncertain. These brief comments reveal more than the main text. They show the human hand behind the data, the hesitations, the glimpses of mystery. You linger on the word transient. A light that appeared where none was expected. Faint, uncertain, unexplained. The astronomer did not build lore from it. He wrote simply, possible transient. Logs keep the mystery grounded. They preserve the humility of science. Instead of rushing to explain, they record, they wait, they let time decide. The Vatican astronomers follow this rhythm faithfully. Their work does not seek sensation. It seeks truth, line by line, night by night. You close the logbook and sit back, listening to the silence of the library. Outside, the dome may still be open, the telescope still gathering light. Inside, the logs gather memory, quiet and steady. Together they form a record not of myths, but of patience. You realize that the absence of lore is its own kind of wonder, for it shows restraint, it shows respect. The astronomers do not force the sky to tell stories. They let it speak in data, in light, in numbers. They trust that meaning will come in time, without rushing, without distortion. You breathe deeply, letting that lesson sink in. Not everything must be turned into narrative. Some things must be left as logs, plain, patient, true. The lore will come later, if it comes at all. As your breath slows, you picture the logbooks stacked neatly on shelves, each one a silent companion to the stars. They are not dramatic, but they endure. And in their endurance lies faith not in myth, but in the quiet strength of watching, recording, waiting. The logs whisper their own truth. Mystery does not need embellishment. It only needs to be preserved. And as you drift into stillness, you realize you too can live like a logbook patient, steady, recording what you see, trusting that meaning will unfold in its own time. The mountain is silent, wrapped in black velvet sky. Pines bend with the weight of darkness, their needles glistening faintly with dew. From far below, the desert lies stretched and lifeless, a sea of shadow broken only by faint ridges that catch the moonlight. Up here, at the summit, the dome stands like a white sentinel, its curve glowing softly in starlight. You walk slowly up the gravel path. The night air is thin, crisp, and still. Each breath feels lighter, cleaner, as though you are inhaling the sky itself. Gravel crunches beneath your boots, the sound sharp in the hush. Ahead, the dome rises larger, its seams faintly outlined, its shell waiting to open. At midnight, the observatory comes alive. The door groans open, the hinges echoing softly. Inside, the air smells of cold steel, oil, and faint dust. The astronomers move quietly, as though they too are part of the night's rhythm. Red lamps glow faintly, casting the room in a hushed glow that protects their eyes from losing sight of the stars. The telescope itself waits, massive and still. Its barrel points upward, silent but full of intent, as though listening to the heavens. Slowly, the dome shifts. Motors hum, panels slide. Above, the roof parts, and the sky pours in. The stars suddenly feel closer, sharper, framed by the circle of the opening. The astronomers adjust controls, their voices barely above whispers. Coordinates are entered, motors whir, gears click. The telescope moves with mechanical grace, angling toward its first target. A galaxy, perhaps, or a cluster, or simply an empty patch of sky where something faint, something forgotten, might emerge. You imagine sitting at the console, watching the screens. At first, there is only static, numbers, coordinates. Then, slowly, the image sharpens. A spiral of stars appears, delicate, ancient, its arms curling like smoke across space. You lean closer, holding your breath. These photons left their source millions of years ago, traveled through darkness, and now, at midnight, they touch the mirror and reach your eyes. The astronomers record quietly, noting conditions, adjusting focus. They are calm, precise, professional. Yet you sense the awe beneath their control. Each image is more than data. It is a gift. To see the invisible, to capture the faint, to be reminded that the universe is not silent but alive with light. Midnight deepens. Outside, the wind picks up, carrying the scent of pine. Coyotes howl faintly, distant but clear. Inside, the dome is a world apart. The telescope shifts again, aligning with another target. A nebula this time, glowing faintly green, clouds of dust and gas birthing stars in silence. You watch, transfixed. The nebula looks fragile, delicate, but within it new suns are forming, new worlds perhaps waiting. The astronomers continue their work, steady and focused. You sit quietly, letting the rhythm of midnight settle into you. The dome hums, the telescope moves, the stars pour in, the mountain breathes, and you breathe with it, feeling the vastness of the universe, pressing gently against your heart. You close your eyes for a moment, hearing only the faint whir of machinery and the soft rustle of notes being taken. Midnight is no longer a time. It is a state, a threshold, a place where earth meets sky and humans meet eternity. The dome at midnight is not only an observatory. Its prayers are numbers, its hymns are images, its devotion is patience. When you open your eyes again, the galaxy still glows faintly on the screen. The astronomers continue to work, steady and humble, and you realize that in this silence, in this midnight, you too are praying not with words, but with wonder. The logs are precise, neat, ordered. Dates, times, coordinates, magnitudes, exposure lengths. Each line a record of the night's work. At first they seem lifeless, dry, nothing more than rows of numbers. But as you linger, you begin to notice patterns, repetition, anomalies, whispers between the lines. You sit at a desk, a thick binder open before you. The paper smells faintly of dust and graphite, touched by countless hands. One entry reads, 2:47, clear skies, target, and 42, faint, transient, observed, duration, 6 seconds. Another, 3:15, object near Vega, movement against background, uncertain, likely satellite. You pause, reading again, uncertain. The word trembles on the page. Most entries are simple, ordinary. Stars, galaxies, known objects. But scattered among them are whispers, faint notes of something that did not belong. Point source brightened suddenly. Object moved too quickly to track. Transient recorded, not found in follow-up. Each phrase is cautious, stripped of speculation, but the silence between the words hums with possibility. You imagine the astronomer who wrote them. Sitting at the console, watching a screen flicker, something unexpected appears. A light that should not be there. A movement against the fixed stars. For a moment, his heart leaps, but he steadies himself. He writes carefully, uncertain. He does not write visitor. He does not write craft. He does not claim what he cannot prove. He whispers instead, leaving the faintest trace. You turn more pages. The whispers accumulate. Not many, but enough to suggest a pattern. Across years, across seasons, across targets, faint anomalies appear, each one dismissed as error, artifact, transient. Yet together they hum like a quiet chorus, a pattern hidden in patience. The Vatican astronomers do not build lore from these whispers. They record them, steady and restrained, trusting the logs more than rumor. But you, reading centuries later, feel the weight of what they left unsaid. They saw something. Again and again, and though they refuse to name it, they refuse to erase it. You lean back in your chair, eyes closed. You imagine those whispers as faint lights across the sky. Not enough to prove, but enough to wonder. You imagine the astronomers, their pens scratching, their hearts beating faster, their words restrained, uncertain, transient, not explained. The whispers in the datasets remind you of the nature of truth. It rarely shouts. It often hides in small anomalies, faint patterns, things too subtle for hurried eyes. To find it, you must slow down, listen carefully, honor the whispers without forcing them into shouts. You breathe deeply, letting the silence of the library settle into you. The logbook lies open, its whispers still humming faintly. You realize the astronomers gave you a gift, not conclusions, but patience. They preserved not certainty, but wonder. And wonder, whispered carefully, endures longer than any claim. The telescope gazes with precision, but even it has limits. Its mirrors capture light, its instruments measure, its logs preserve. But there are questions no scope can answer. Questions that drift beyond numbers, beyond data, into the silence of human longing. You step outside the dome, the night vast above you. The telescope continues its patient work behind you, but you lift your eyes without lenses, without mirrors, without screens. Just your eyes, fragile and human, staring into infinity. The stars are countless, bright, alive. You feel their weight pressing against your heart. Beyond the scope lies the question of meaning. What is out there? Are we alone? If not, who shares this cosmos with us? The telescope records photons, but it cannot tell you whether another mind gazes back. It cannot tell you if the whispers in the datasets are chance or encounter. It cannot tell you why your heart aches with both wonder and loneliness beneath the stars. You imagine the Vatican astronomers facing the same questions. They gather data, they write logs, they analyze spectra. But when they step outside at dawn, when the telescope rests, they too must wonder. Beyond the scope, what waits? Beyond the scope, what truth hums in silence? You sit on a stone, feeling the cold seep through your clothes. The mountain wind brushes against your face. The Milky Way arches overhead, endless and radiant. You close your eyes and breathe deeply. Beyond the scope is not absence. It is presence too vast to measure. It is mystery that refuses to fit into lenses or mirrors. Perhaps the Vatican knew this all along. Perhaps that is why they never wrote claims of aliens or beings. Not because they saw nothing, but because they understood the scope's limits. Because they knew some truths are not for instruments, but for silence, prayer, and wonder. You open your eyes again. The stars shimmer, steady and eternal. The telescope hums behind you, recording, measuring, doing its sacred work. But you know its limits. Beyond it lies the vast unknown. Beyond it lies the whisper that has followed humanity since the first eyes lifted to the sky. You breathe once more, slow and deep. The scope is a tool. The stars are a presence. And you, caught between them, are both observer and participant. Both question and answer. Beyond the scope lies what cannot be written. Beyond the scope lies the silence that speaks louder than data. Beyond the scope lies the eternal mystery that draws you, night after night, to lift your eyes in wonder. The iron key rests heavy in your hand. Its surface is rough with age, its teeth worn by centuries of use. You hold it carefully, feeling the weight of responsibility pressed into metal. This key does not open a simple door. It opens an archive, a chamber beneath the Vatican, where silence has guarded shelves for generations. You walk slowly down the corridor, walls of stone echoing faintly with your steps. The air cools as you descend, carrying the scent of dust, parchment, and wax. Torches once lit this way, now lamps glow softly, steady and low. At the end of the passage, a wooden door waits. iron bands crossing its face. You lift the key, insert it into the lock, and feel the mechanism shift with a deep click. The door swings open. Darkness breathes out, thick and steady. Inside, shelves rise high, stacked with volumes bound in leather, boxes of manuscripts, bundles tied with twine. You step inside, and the silence wraps around you like a cloak. Among the shelves, a figure moves quietly. The keeper of keys. His robes are simple, his face lined with years of service. He does not greet you loudly. He only nods, acknowledging your presence without breaking the hush. His task is not to speak, but to preserve. His hands know the weight of each volume, the location of each box, the rhythm of the collection. He gestures to a shelf in the corner. You follow, your footsteps soft on the stone. He reaches for a volume bound in black leather, its spine unmarked, its cover worn smooth. He opens it carefully, pages yellow with age. Inside, neat lines of handwriting fill the parchment. Notes of lights in the sky, recorded by clerics centuries ago. Simple, steady, without flourish. He points to a margin where a scribe wrote in red ink, "Modus Mirus," a strange movement. He says nothing, but his eyes meet yours, steady and knowing. The keeper of keys lives not in speculation, but in stewardship. He does not decide the meaning of the texts he guards. He preserves them, allowing future generations to find meaning in their own time. His silence is not ignorance, but discipline. He understands that truth can be fragile, easily twisted, easily lost. Better to guard it carefully than to speak too soon. You walk among the shelves with him. Some volumes are heavy with astronomy, calculations of stars and planets, careful diagrams of spheres. Others hold sermons, letters, quiet confessions of wonder. A few are bound in strange cloth, their titles hidden. He does not open those. He only rests his hand upon them briefly, acknowledging their presence without unveiling their contents. At last, he guides you back to the door. You step outside, the air warmer, the light brighter. He closes the door behind you, turning the key slowly, firmly, until the lock clicks shut. Then he tucks the key into his robe and walks away without a word. You stand alone in the corridor, the silence of the archive still heavy in your chest. The keeper of keys is gone, but his presence lingers. You realize his role is more than guardian of manuscripts. He is a guardian of silence, of patience, of mystery itself. His task is not to reveal, but to keep safe until the world is ready. You close your eyes and breathe deeply. You feel the weight of the keys, not in your hand, but in your heart. You realize that you too are a keeper of keys, keys to your own memories, your own mysteries, your own truths that cannot yet be spoken. Some doors must remain closed until the right moment comes. The keeper of keys teaches that silence is not emptiness, but reverence. That some truths must be guarded, not shouted. And as you walk back up the corridor, your breath slow, your steps steady, you understand that the lock itself is part of the wisdom. The chamber feels alive. You step inside, and though the air is still, you sense movement not of wind, but of time. Shelves rise like walls, filled with manuscripts and scrolls, their bindings worn, their edges fragile. The scent of dust and ink hangs heavy, but beneath it hums something subtle, a rhythm, a pulse. The archive breathes. You walk slowly between the shelves. Your fingers brush the spines of volumes that have not been touched in decades, perhaps centuries. Each one feels like a lung, holding the breath of its author, waiting for release. The parchment crackles softly, like whispers rising in the dark. On one shelf you find a bundle tied with faded string. You untie it carefully, the knot stiff with age. Inside are pages filled with small, hurried handwriting, notes of sightings, lights that lingered above villages, movements traced across the stars. Some entries are brief. Light seen above the river, remained for 7 breaths, then vanished. Others are longer, filled with careful detail, diagrams of paths across the sky, comparisons to known stars. You read slowly, your breath matching the rhythm of the words. Each note feels like an inhalation, a moment preserved. When you close the page, it feels like an exhale. The author's breath finally released after centuries. The archive does not store dead words. It stores living memory. Each text is a lung, each shelf a rib cage, each chamber a chest filled with the breath of those who watch the heavens. You feel it as you walk the subtle pulse, the quiet rhythm, the sense that the archive itself inhales and exhales with you. You pause before a shelf of darker volumes. Their spines are blank, their covers plain. You pull one free and open it. Inside are notes of silence, pages left blank, with only a line at the top, non-scriptum, not written. You feel your chest tighten. Even silence has been preserved here. Even what could not be said has been given form. The archive breathes not only through words, but through gaps, through pauses, through spaces left untouched. You close the book gently and return it to its place. The shelves creak faintly, as though acknowledging your touch. You walk further, deeper, until you find a ladder leaning against a high wall of volumes. You climb slowly, each rung creaking beneath your weight, until you reach a shelf near the top. Here the books are smaller, bound in soft leather, their pages delicate. You open one and find star maps drawn by hand, tiny points connected by faint lines. The stars breathe across the page, alive even after centuries. You sit on the ladder, holding the book in your lap. You look down the aisle, rows of shelves stretching into shadow. The archive feels vast, endless, but it does not overwhelm. It comforts. Its breath matches yours, steady and calm. You realize that the archive is not merely a collection of records. It is a living body, sustained by those who preserved, those who guarded, those who wrote, those who read. You are part of it now. Each breath you take becomes part of its rhythm. You close the book, descend the ladder, and walk slowly back toward the entrance. The shelves loom tall, but no longer silent. You hear them breathing with you. You leave the chamber quietly, carrying the pulse of the archive in your chest. You realize you too are an archive, filled with memories, silences, breaths preserved. The archive that breathes teaches you that memory is not dead. It is alive, waiting for the moment it is read, the moment it is felt, the moment it is remembered. And as you step into the light beyond the chamber, your own breath feels larger, fuller, part of something vast and endless. The hallway is narrow, its stones worn smooth by countless feet. Torches once lit its path, but now dim lamps flicker faintly, their glow casting long shadows. The air is colder here, sharper, carrying a faint metallic tang. You walk slowly, your hand brushing the wall for balance. The corridor seems endless, bending deeper into shadow. You reach a door, smaller than expected, its frame low, its wood dark with age. An iron handle waits, cool beneath your fingers. You push, and the door creaks open. Beyond lies another passage, narrower still, lined with shelves that press close, almost suffocating. These are not the grand archives, open and ordered. These are the forbidden corridors, hidden, guarded, whispered about. You step inside, the air heavier. The shelves are crowded, with volumes bound in plain leather, their spines unmarked. Boxes stacked one upon another, lids closed tight, bundles tied with thick cord. Nothing is labeled, nothing invites you. Everything waits in silence, as if daring you to disturb it. You pull a box carefully from a shelf. Inside are loose papers, their ink faded, their lines hurried. Some describe strange lights in the sky, recorded by witnesses whose names are lost. Others speak of visions, encounters, shapes seen above churches at night. The words are careful, restrained, but you feel the fear beneath them. You close the box, your hands trembling slightly. You move further down the corridor. Another shelf, another bundle. This one contains sketches, crude but clear, circles in the sky, lines trailing like fire, shapes hovering above villages. The drawings are not elaborate. They are plain, direct, the work of hands that wanted to remember without embellishment. You stare at them, your breath shallow. The forbidden corridors are not filled with myths. They are filled with what could not be spoken openly. Reports too strange for the pulpit, notes too delicate for the public record, confessions written in silence, tucked away where only the trusted might find them. You imagine the decision. A priest receives a letter describing lights above a field. He hesitates. To publish it might bring ridicule. To ignore it feels dishonest. So he writes it down, quietly, then places it here, in these narrow shelves, among others like it, not erased, not declared hidden. The air grows colder as you move deeper. The lamps flicker faintly, their light struggling against the shadows. You sense the weight of centuries pressing in, the silence growing heavier. These corridors were not meant for many footsteps. You are intruding, and the shelves know it. You pause, resting your hand against a book bound in dark cloth. You do not open it. You simply feel its weight, its silence. You realize that some knowledge is preserved not to be read, but to be remembered as existing. Its presence alone is enough. You turn back slowly, retracing your steps. The shelves loom close, their silence thick. You pass the bundles, the boxes, the sketches, the hurried notes. You return to the small door, push it open, and step back into the wider corridor. The air feels lighter, warmer. The forbidden corridors remain behind you, sealed in their own silence. You breathe deeply, steadying yourself. You realize the forbidden corridors are not only in the Vatican. They exist in every heart, passages of memory and experience too strange, too delicate, too heavy to share. We hide them in narrow shelves, unmarked and silent, waiting for the moment when someone, perhaps, is ready to open them. The forbidden corridors teach that mystery is not always for everyone. Some truths must remain hidden, preserved in silence, guarded by time. And as you walk away, your steps slow, your breath calm. You carry the weight of those corridors within you, narrow, silent, forbidden, but real. Stone steps spiral downward. The walls curve close around you, their surfaces rough, marked by the passage of centuries. Each step echoes softly, the sound swallowed almost at once by the silence below. You carry a lantern, its flame flickering, casting long shadows that stretch and shrink with each movement. The air grows colder as you descend, carrying the faint scent of damp stone and old earth. The staircase seems endless. It coils like a serpent, turning again and again, deeper into the hidden belly of the Vatican. You pause, resting your hand on the wall. The stone is cool, solid, yet alive with the faint hum of memory. Thousands of hands have touched these same walls. Thousands of feet have worn the edges of these steps. You are not the first to walk here, and you will not be the last. At last, the stairs end at a small landing. A heavy door waits, iron-bound, its hinges dark with rust. You press against it, and it yields slowly, groaning, as though reluctant to be opened. Beyond lies a chamber lit faintly by lamps mounted high on the walls. The light is dim, golden, barely strong enough to chase away the shadows. You step inside. Shelves line the room, tall and crowded, filled with manuscripts, scrolls, and boxes. The air is heavy, thick with dust and parchment, as if centuries of breath have settled here. You walk slowly, your lantern swinging, its light revealing glimpses of spines, bindings, labels written in Latin. Some volumes are neat, orderly, catalogued. Others are plain, their covers blank, their contents hidden. On a central table rests an open book. Its pages are filled with diagrams of the heavens, circles within circles, lines connecting stars. Notes fill the margins, cramped handwriting running in neat rows. You lean closer, reading. Some entries are calculations of planetary motion. Others are notes of light seen, sudden and unexplained. Strange glow above the horizon, one line reads. Another. A star moved swiftly, brighter than Venus, then vanished. You trace the words with your finger. The ink faded but still legible. The scribe wrote without embellishment, without flourish. His task was not to interpret, but to preserve. He left the meaning for others to decide, for the future to reveal. You close the book gently and continue. Further back, you find another shelf, filled with volumes bound in dark leather. Their spines are marked only with dates, some centuries old. You pull one free and open it. Inside are testimonies. Reports written by witnesses, farmers, sailors, priests, describing lights that lingered, objects that moved against the stars, shapes that defied explanation. The words are careful, restrained, yet between the lines hums something undeniable. Fear, awe, reverence. The staircase you descended was not just a passage of stone. It was a descent into memory, into silence, into the fragile space where the Vatican kept what could not be erased but dared not be shouted. You close the book, return it to the shelf, and stand still in the dim light. The room breathes around you, alive with the whispers of countless voices. You realize that knowledge does not only rise, it descends. Down staircases, into hidden chambers, into places where silence keeps watch. You lift your lantern, walk back to the door, and step onto the staircase once more. The climb upward feels heavier, each step echoing with the weight of what you have seen. But in your chest, a light glows brighter. The staircase teaches that truth is not always found in what is revealed, but in what is preserved beneath, waiting patiently for those willing to descend. The bell tower rises above the city, its stone weathered, its windows open to the sky. At dawn, its bells ring out, echoing across the rooftops, calling the faithful to prayer. But at night, when the bells are silent, the tower casts a shadow that stretches long and dark across the square. In that shadow lies another kind of story, one not spoken from the pulpit. You stand beneath the tower. The cobblestones cool beneath your feet. The air smells faintly of smoke and incense, the remnants of days' rituals. Above, the tower looms, its silhouette cutting sharp against the starry sky. You hear the faint creak of wood, the rustle of pigeons nesting in its eaves, but mostly you hear silence, thick and steady. The tower has stood for centuries, watching over the city, its bells marking the rhythm of life. Yet in its shadow, people have gathered to whisper. Sailors returning from voyages, describing lights above the sea, farmers recounting objects that hovered above their fields, pilgrims speaking of visions they dared not share aloud. The tower did not speak, but its shadow gave them shelter. You imagine one such gathering, a group huddled close, their voices low. One man describes a sphere of fire that moved across the night sky, silent, deliberate. Another speaks of a light that followed him on the road, bright yet cold, vanishing without a trace. A woman recalls a dream so vivid she cannot tell if it was vision or reality. They speak quickly, nervously, glancing toward the church as if fearing rebuke. But in the tower's shadow, their words are safe. The priests who listened sometimes wrote these things down, carefully, cautiously, not for sermons, not for declarations, but for memory. Some notes made their way to archives. Others were hidden, tucked into drawers, left to rest in silence. The tower heard it all, though it never rang its bells for such stories. You walk slowly around the base of the tower. The stones are cold, worn smooth by countless feet. You place your hand against them, feeling their solidity, their patience. The tower has seen centuries pass, yet it still stands, still casts its shadow. It has been both a beacon and a shelter, both a voice and a silence. The bells above are silent now. You imagine them swaying in the wind, heavy bronze hearts waiting to strike. At dawn, they will call again. But for now, they rest. As the shadow stretches long, you close your eyes and breathe. You realize that every life has its bell tower, something that calls loudly in daylight, and something that casts a shadow at night. In the shadow, truths are whispered, fragile but real. The bell tower's shadow teaches that not everything is meant for proclamation. Some truths live in the hush, in the quiet, in the shelter of stone. You open your eyes and step away, leaving the shadow behind. But it lingers in your heart, long and steady, a reminder that silence can protect as much as sound can proclaim. The chamber is vast, its ceiling high, its walls painted with saints and symbols. Long tables stretch across the floor, polished wood gleaming in the dim light. Around them sit cardinals in crimson robes, their heads bowed, their voices hushed. The air is heavy, filled with the scent of incense and old wood, the weight of centuries pressing down. You enter quietly, unseen, and listen. Their voices rise and fall, measured, deliberate. They speak of doctrine, of scripture, of matters of faith and governance. But occasionally, the conversation shifts. A letter has arrived, describing strange lights above a village. A missionary has written of luminous objects seen in distant lands. An astronomer has sent notes of anomalies he cannot explain. The cardinals listen, their faces unreadable. Some dismiss the reports quickly, waving them away as illusions, errors, tricks of the mind. Others hesitate, their eyes narrowing, their fingers tapping softly against the table. A few remain silent, their gaze distant, as if weighing something they dare not say aloud. The silence of cardinals is not ignorance, it is choice. They know the power of words spoken from their seats. To acknowledge such reports might cause fear, might spark confusion, might open doors they are not ready to walk through. To deny them outright risks erasing something that may matter later. And so, they choose silence. You watch as one cardinal lifts a document, reads it carefully, then folds it again and places it aside. He says nothing. His silence is deliberate, measured. He will not dismiss it, but he will not proclaim it. The report will be filed, preserved in some quiet corner of the archive, waiting for another time. The chamber grows quieter. The cardinals turn back to matters of scripture, of law, of faith. Their silence lingers, heavy, unspoken. You realize that their power lies not only in what they declare, but in what they do not. Their silence shapes history as much as their words. You close your eyes and breathe deeply. You feel the weight of that silence pressing against you. It is not emptiness. It is protection. It is reverence. It is patience. The silence of cardinals teaches that some truths cannot be rushed, cannot be forced. They must be carried quietly until the time is right. You open your eyes and look once more at the chamber. The cardinals sit still, their robes glowing faintly in the dim light, their silence thick as stone. You step away, leaving the room behind. But the silence follows you, settling into your heart. It is not absence. It is presence too deep for words. The courtyard of the old seminary lies silent. Stone arches cast long shadows across the cobblestones, and the fountain at its center has stilled into a basin of black glass. Above, the heavens blaze, the stars sharp and countless, spread wide across the Roman night. The air smells of olive trees and distant incense drifting from chapels where candles still burn. You stand at the edge of the courtyard, cloaked in silence, listening. From one of the side doors, a faint creak. Two figures step into the courtyard, their robes brushing the stones, their steps careful. They glance behind them, then lower their voices as they walk together. You cannot hear every word, but the tone is clear, measured, hesitant, reverent. They speak not of sermons or rituals, but of the sky. One raises a hand toward the stars. His finger points toward a light moving slowly, deliberately, across the darkness. The other nods, his lips moving quickly in prayer or perhaps caution. They pause by the fountain, their heads close, their voices hushed. You hear fragments, mirabile, wonderful, incertum, uncertain. Then, silence. They stand together, watching, as the light drifts beyond the roofline and vanishes into the night. The whispers under starlight do not carry the weight of proclamation. They are not written into doctrine. They live in moments like this, two figures standing quietly, speaking of what they cannot explain, unwilling to dismiss but unready to declare. You close your eyes and imagine centuries of such whispers. Priests walking cloisters at night, pointing upward to lights that wandered where no star belonged. Monks in mountain monasteries murmuring of fireballs that hovered above valleys. Missionaries in foreign lands describing glowing objects that followed their ships, their voices never raised. Their words never shouted, but whispered carefully, reverently, into the silence of night. The Vatican did not deny these whispers. It preserved them. In letters stored away, in notes tucked into ledgers, in quiet testimonies sealed in archives. They were not declared as proof, nor discarded as nonsense. They were carried quietly, like fragile candles in the dark. You realize that whispers themselves hold power. They pass not through the roar of proclamation, but through the intimacy of trust. A whisper requires closeness, requires silence. To whisper under starlight is to honor the mystery without claiming to master it. You tilt your head back. The sky above the courtyard spreads wide, infinite, and alive. You breathe slowly, hearing the faint echoes of countless whispers that have risen beneath it. Words carried on cool night air, secrets shared with the stars. The whispers under starlight teach that truth often begins quietly. It does not arrive as thunder, but as murmur. It does not overwhelm, but gently stirs. And as you stand beneath the heavens, your own breath slow and steady, you feel yourself part of that chain of whispers, small, fragile, but enduring, passed from one soul to another beneath the eternal night. The building rises on the hill, its walls pale stone, its dome gleaming faintly in the last light of dusk. Pathways wind toward it, lined with cypress trees that sway in the evening breeze. Birds cry out one final time before falling silent. The observatory waits, still and patient, a temple not of bells but of stars. You climb the path slowly, your footsteps crunching against gravel. The air grows cooler as you approach, filled with the scent of pine and earth. The dome towers above you now, its curved shell reflecting the first stars. The observatory is quiet, its doors heavy, its windows dark. Inside, silence deepens. The air smells of metal, oil, faint dust. Instruments rest neatly on tables, their lenses polished, their charts rolled. The telescope itself looms in the center, its barrel angled toward the heavens, its body massive but still. Around it, the room is empty. No voices, no movement, only silence. You sit on a bench near the wall, letting the quiet settle into you. The observatory feels less like a laboratory and more like a chapel. Its silence is not absence but presence, filled with a weight you cannot name. The telescope is not just an instrument, it is an altar. The dome above is not only a roof, it is a window into eternity. The astronomers who work here know this. They move quietly, their voices low, their gestures precise. They record data, they draw charts, they write logs, but they do so with reverence. Each observation is not merely science, but devotion. To watch the stars is to pray with the eyes. To measure their light is to listen to creation. At times, anomalies appear, lights too bright, movements too swift, patterns that defy expectation. These are written down carefully, cautiously, without embellishment. Then silence returns. The observatory does not cry out. It whispers in logs, preserves in notes, leaves the mystery intact. You realize that silence itself is part of the work. Without silence, the telescope cannot see. Without silence, the mind cannot listen. The observatory teaches patience, humility, restraint. It reminds those who enter that the universe does not shout. It speaks in light, faint and steady, across gulfs of time. To hear it, one must be silent. You close your eyes, breathing deeply. The observatory surrounds you, its silence thick, steady, comforting. You feel your own thoughts slow, your heartbeat steady, your breath deepen. You realize that you too are an observatory, capable of silence, capable of listening. The observatory of silence teaches that not all truths are found in noise. Some are found only when the world grows quiet, when instruments pause, when hearts open. And as you sit in the stillness, you feel the silence become not emptiness but fullness, vast and infinite as the sky itself. The chamber is small, its ceiling low, its walls lined with books. A single candle burns on the table, casting a pool of light that flickers against shelves heavy with manuscripts. The air smells of wax and leather, old paper and dust. At the table sits a cardinal, his robes crimson in the glow, his face lined with years of service. Before him lies a letter, its seal broken, its ink still fresh. He reads it slowly, carefully, his lips moving silently with the words. It describes a sighting, a light above a village, bright and unmoving, lingering for hours before vanishing without sound. The priest who wrote it insists it was no star, no planet, no comet. It was something else. Something he cannot name. The cardinal leans back, the letter trembling slightly in his hand. His eyes lift toward the window. Beyond it, the night stretches wide, stars scattered like jewels. For a long moment, he stares, his breath shallow, his heart unsteady. In the silence of his chamber, He feels the weight of what he has read, pressing against what he sees. He knows his duty. He must decide what to do with the letter. To dismiss it would be simple. To proclaim it would be reckless. To preserve it quietly would be safest. He places the letter gently on the table, folds it carefully, and sets it aside. He will not destroy it. He will not declare it. He will preserve it. But in that moment, as his eyes linger on the stars, something stirs within him. A glimpse not of certainty, not of knowledge, but of possibility. He imagines, just for an instant, that the universe might be fuller than he has been taught to say, that the heavens might hold not only stars and angels, but mysteries unspoken. He exhales slowly, his breath trembling. He closes his eyes and bows his head. His prayer is not of doctrine, not of creed. It is simple. Grant me wisdom. You watch him sit in silence, the candle flickering, the stars beyond steady and bright. His glimpse is not vision, not proof. It is a moment of humility, a moment of wonder. It will not be spoken in council. It will not be written in decrees. But it will live in him, carried quietly, shaping how he listens, how he prays, how he decides. The cardinal's glimpse teaches that truth often comes not as thunder, but as moment, not as certainty, but as possibility. To glimpse is not to know. It is to be humbled, to be opened, to be reminded that the universe is larger than words. You close your eyes, your breath slow, your body still. You imagine holding a letter, reading words that tremble with mystery, looking out a window to stars that shine silently above. You too glimpse not certainty, not proof, but wonder. And wonder, you realize, is enough. The square at dawn is quiet. The stones are damp with morning mist, and pigeons scatter as the first pilgrims shuffle in from narrow streets. They carry rosaries, candles, folded papers with prayers written in trembling hands. Most approach the basilica in silence, heads bowed, their steps steady, but among them walks one man different from the rest. He does not clutch a rosary. He does not hum prayers beneath his breath. He holds only a small notebook, worn and bent, its pages filled with lines of his own hand. He has come not for blessing, but for answers. His questions burn too brightly to be silenced by hymns. He waits until the basilica doors open, then slips inside with the crowd. The great hall swallows him, its marble floor cool, its ceiling rising like heaven itself. Candles flicker in alcoves, shadows dancing across gold and stone. The air is thick with incense, heavy with centuries of devotion. He kneels briefly, but his lips do not move. Instead, he lifts his eyes toward the altar, and in his silence, a single question pounds in his chest. What does the church know? He spends the day speaking quietly to priests, attendants, anyone who will listen. He asks not about sin or grace, but about stars, about lights seen by shepherds, about rumors of archives beneath the basilica. Some shake their heads and walk away. Others frown, their brows heavy with caution. One young priest whispers only, "There are questions safer left unasked." But the pilgrim does not stop. Each answer, each silence, only fuels him further. He writes notes in his book, quick strokes of his pen, recording every whisper. In the shadow of a statue, he hears two men speak of manuscripts hidden away, locked behind iron doors. Near a confessional, he overhears a priest describe lights above the sea, seen by missionaries long ago. Each fragment joins the others in his book, forming a puzzle without a picture. Night falls. The basilica empties. The pilgrim remains in the square, the great dome above him lit faintly by moonlight. His notebook rests on his lap, its pages filled with whispers and half-answers. He closes his eyes, hearing again the warning. There are questions safer left unasked. But he cannot let them go. You imagine him years later, still searching, his notebook thicker, his hair gray, his voice hoarse. Perhaps he never finds the answers he seeks. Perhaps his notes are tucked away, lost in drawers, dismissed by others. Yet his pilgrimage is not wasted. For in asking, he preserved something vital. The refusal to let silence erase wonder. The pilgrim who asks too much reminds you that questions are not always meant to be answered. Sometimes they are meant to keep alive the fire of seeking. Sometimes the asking itself is the devotion. You breathe deeply, your own chest heavy with unspoken questions. You realize that to ask is not to betray faith, but to honor it. The pilgrim teaches you that it is not dangerous to ask. It is dangerous only to stop asking. And as you close your eyes, your breath slow, you feel his footsteps echoing through you. Steady, restless, unafraid. The door is plain, unmarked. It hides among others in the corridor, indistinguishable, as if it does not wish to be noticed. Yet behind it lies one of the strangest rooms in the Vatican, a library without windows. You push the door open and step inside. The air is heavy, still, untouched by the wind or Sunday. The only light comes from lamps placed at intervals, their glow soft and steady, casting shadows against the shelves. The walls are lined with books from floor to ceiling, their spines close-packed, their titles faint. The room feels endless, though you know its walls are near. You walk slowly between the shelves. The air smells of leather, dust, faint ink. No breeze stirs. No bird sings. This library is sealed from the outside world, as if knowledge itself must be kept from light. Each step you take echoes faintly, quickly swallowed by silence. You reach for a book at random. Its cover is plain, its leather cracked. Inside, neat handwriting fills the pages, observations of the sky, recorded night after night. Some describe stars and planets with precision. Others mention strange lights, sudden appearances, objects that vanished without sound. Each line is careful, restrained, but together they form a chorus of wonder. You close the book and replace it. Another catches your eye, this one bound in dark cloth. You open it to find sketches, circles, spheres, luminous shapes, drawn by hand centuries ago. Beneath each sketch, a note. Seen above the Tiber, winter, 1623. Witnessed by sailors off Naples, summer, 1741. Observed in Florence, mistaken first for star, then moved. The library, without windows, holds not proclamations, but fragments. Testimonies gathered, preserved, hidden. Each book feels like a whisper sealed in leather. Each page carries voices of those who saw, wondered, and wrote. You pause at a table in the center of the room. On it rests a ledger, open to a half-filled page. Its handwriting is different, newer, fresher. The ink has not yet fully faded. It records an anomaly seen in the sky above South America, witnessed by missionaries. The description is calm, precise, without flourish. Yet as you read, the words seem to tremble with awe. Object remains stationary for 2 hours. Light intense, without heat. No sound. You close the ledger gently, aware that its writer may still live, or may have passed only recently. The room breathes around you, heavy, alive. Its silence presses deeper with each moment. You realize why there are no windows. Windows invite eyes, invite openness. But here, knowledge must be preserved without gaze, hidden from day, sealed in silence. You sit at the table, your breath slow. You feel the weight of all these testimonies pressing around you, voices that cannot speak but still linger. You realize that knowledge does not always belong in sunlight. Some truths are kept in darkness, not to erase them, but to protect them until the world is ready. The library without windows teaches that silence is not always suppression. Sometimes it is stewardship. Sometimes windows are closed not to hide, but to shield. You rise slowly, your steps steady, and leave the room behind. The door closes softly, and the corridor outside feels brighter, lighter, freer. Yet the silence of that windowless library remains with you, deep in your chest, like a secret breath that will not fade. The observatory dome is open, the night vast above. The telescope hums softly, its mirrors aligned, its barrel steady. Inside, the astronomer sits alone at the console. His hands move quickly, adjusting settings, recording data. But his eyes linger not on the instruments, but on the sky itself. He has seen something. Not tonight, but years ago. A light that moved where no light should. A shape that hovered, deliberate, silent. He recorded it carefully, noted it with restraint. Anomaly observed, duration brief, cause uncertain. He did not write what he felt, what he knew in his chest. He did not tell his colleagues. He folded the truth quietly into his heart. Tonight, as the telescope turns, he remembers. The stars glow sharp on the screen, galaxies spiral, nebulae shimmer. He notes their positions with precision, his pen moving steadily. But beneath his calm, a secret burns. He knows what he saw, and he knows it did not belong to any chart. He closes his eyes for a moment, his breath shallow. He remembers the light, how it pulsed, how it moved against the stars, how it vanished without a trace. It was not a star. It was not a planet. It was something else. Something unspoken. Why did he not write it fully? Because he knows the weight of words. To record too much would draw questions he cannot answer. To speak too loudly would invite ridicule, suspicion, dismissal. To stay silent preserves the secret, allows it to live quietly, unbroken. Within him, he opens his eyes and continues his work. He notes the position of a galaxy, the brightness of a cluster, the faint arc of a comet. His log is steady, factual, precise, but beneath the lines, between the numbers, his secret remains. You watch him in your mind as he finishes his night's work. He closes the log, shuts down the console, and steps outside the dome. The mountain air is cold, sharp. The stars blaze above, countless and alive. He stands for a long moment, gazing upward, his chest heavy with silence. The astronomer's secret is not proof. It is not declaration. It is memory, preserved quietly, carried in silence. He will never proclaim it. He will never erase it. He will keep it alive in the only place it can survive, in his heart. You breathe deeply, your own chest heavy with secrets you have carried. You realize that silence is not always cowardice. Sometimes it is devotion. Sometimes it is the only way to honor a truth too fragile for words. The astronomer's secret teaches that not everything seen is meant to be said. Some truths live not in logs or proclamations, but in memory, in silence, in the heart of one who knows. You close your eyes, feeling the mountain air against your skin, the stars burning above. You too carry secrets, fragile, unspoken, and you too honor them, not with noise, but with silence that breathes like prayer. The office is modest, tucked in a quiet corner of the Vatican's older wings. Its walls are lined with shelves, filled not with ornate manuscripts but with the practical tools of scholarship: ledgers, bound journals, folders marked with dates. The desk at the center is heavy oak, its surface polished smooth by years of hands. Pens lie neatly beside an inkwell, papers stacked with care. To any passerby, it is a scholar's room, nothing more. But the drawer on the right side of the desk tells another story. It is locked, always locked. The key rests in the pocket of its keeper, a priest whose hair has grayed, whose robes carry the faint scent of incense and dust. He unlocks it rarely, only when night is deep and the corridors empty. When the drawer slides open, it reveals not ledgers or routine documents, but fragments, letters folded and yellowed, pages torn from journals, notes written hastily on scraps of paper. Each one contains something not meant for the open archive. One letter describes a light seen above the Tyrrhenian Sea by sailors on a papal ship. The priest who preserved it underlined 3 words: not star, not fire. Another page records testimony from a missionary in Africa. A glowing sphere that followed villagers across fields, silent and constant, before vanishing into the horizon. A torn scrap shows only a sketch, a circle in the sky with lines radiating outward. Beneath it the word ignotum, unknown. The priest reads them sometimes when the silence of night presses too heavily. He smooths the pages carefully, his fingers trembling slightly. His lips move in quiet prayer as his eyes follow each line. He does not seek to explain. He does not dare to proclaim. He simply guards. Why a drawer? Because not all knowledge belongs on shelves, cataloged, and open to eyes. Some must be kept closer, quieter, hidden not to erase but to protect. The drawer is a tomb and a cradle both, holding what is too fragile for exposure. You imagine the priest sitting at his desk, the drawer open, the papers spread before him. He reads, breathes deeply, then gathers them again, folds them carefully, places them back into their hidden chamber. He locks the drawer with a soft click and places the key once more in his pocket. His shoulders ease as though he has returned the weight to its proper place. You realize as you picture this that we all have such a drawer, a place where we keep memories too fragile, too heavy, too mysterious for daylight, not erased, not forgotten, but hidden, preserved. We unlock it only when silence is thick, when our hearts need to remember. The locked desk drawer teaches that secrecy is not always suppression. Sometimes it is stewardship, a way to honor truths not yet ready for the world. And as you breathe slowly, imagining the priest's hand turning the key, you feel your own hidden drawer inside, guarding what you have never spoken but still carry. The chapel is nearly empty. A single candle flickers near the altar, its light trembling across stone walls. The pews are shadowed, the air heavy with silence. Midnight presses against the stained glass windows, but no light enters. Only darkness. In one of the pews kneels a man. His robes are simple, his shoulders stooped with years. His lips move in prayer, but his eyes remain fixed on the shadows ahead. His heart beats faster than his words. Tonight, his prayers are not of gratitude or ritual. Tonight, he carries a confession. He waits until the silence grows unbearable, then rises and moves toward the confessional. The wooden booth waits, its curtains drawn. He enters slowly, kneeling on the worn cushion. His hands tremble as he makes the sign of the cross. From the other side, a faint rustle, the priest who listens, steady and calm. The man exhales. His voice is low, hesitant. He speaks not of sins of anger or neglect, but of something else, something he saw years ago. A light above the sea, moving with purpose, silent, vast. He had never spoken of it, never written it down, but it has lingered, pressing against his heart, demanding release. Tonight, he lets it spill into the silence of the booth. The listening priest does not interrupt. He remains still, his breathing steady, his presence calm. The words continue. How the light hovered, how it grew brighter, how it vanished without a trace. The man's voice trembles as he admits his fear that it was a sign, that it was something beyond human, that it was not meant to be forgotten. When he finishes, silence fills the booth. The listening priest speaks softly, his words steady. Confession is not only for sins, it is for burdens too heavy to carry alone. You have spoken, you have preserved. Let the mystery rest with God. The man breathes deeply, his shoulders lowering. He does not feel resolved, not fully, but he feels lighter, as though the silence he carried has now been shared, preserved in another's heart. He leaves the booth quietly, returns to his pew, and kneels once more. The candle still flickers, steady now, its light warmer. You sit with the image, the midnight confession. You realize that truth is not always about proclamation. Sometimes it is about release. Sometimes it is about trusting another to carry what you cannot. The midnight confession teaches that silence can suffocate, but spoken in trust, it can also heal. The man's secret did not vanish. It did not need to. It needed only to be shared, to be carried together, to rest in the hush of sacred space. You breathe slowly, your chest easing, as if your own unspoken truths could be whispered into that midnight booth, carried not for answers, but for release. And as you imagine the candles glow, you feel your burdens grow lighter too.